Yep, I'm live. And in the beginning, there was darkness. And the Word said, "What the heck is going on? Where's reality?" And then there was some kind of reality. A little bit of light. Well, I'm in bed. It's cold. Ooh, it's cold. What happened to global warming? Hey, Al Gore, what happened to global warming? Want to know what happened to global warming? Go to Oppenheimer Ranch, and that guy will make you laugh. So what happened last night? Well, Rick, John, what's his name, came back. He's back. And, he's, every time I do a live chat, his little computer lights up. He watches a little bit, then he comes down and wants it to be the What's-A-Name show. The physical education teacher. Well, that's interesting. And then he got bored and went upstairs, and I went into my little shtick. And after about an hour and a half, he came back down and took back over. And there's not much I can do, right? I just point the camera at him and let him do his shtick. But what was interesting, just when I was about to get to the hiatus of the story of the Rainbow Gathering in Pennsylvania, my first one, the came down and just took over, told his reality. But it was very interesting. I have no idea how this happened. Right about when he got started, or a little bit before, someone tried to call, again, the powers that shouldn't be tiptoeing through my tulips, which is, a sign that I'm getting somebody's attention other than you guys. And it's now 5:26 the a.m. Here in, freezing Virginia. And up there in Philly and New York, it's going to be -9°C. And you guys in Europe, tell everyone else here in America who don't understand the metric system what that means. It means that in about 4 days, cold is going to be pulling into England and then France and then Spain and Italy. Ooh, baby. And the kind of summer that you had where everything was on fire, it's going to be the diverse, directional opposite. It's going to be like the North Pole. And Greenland is building a larger ice sheet than it has ever seen, The whole story that Al Gore was going on about, the poles will be all liquid and we'll have the coast flooding and blah, 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 blah. And he got a Nobel Prize for that, man, that guy. He's worse than a used car salesman. I invented the internet, It almost sounds like the PE teacher. I think the PE teacher and Al Gore are, they got a hardwire, They got a computer download. And both of them have been abducted by those little gray guys. Because John, the PE teacher, I think we just call him PE, right? That's what's his name, new name, PE. PE, he's always going, did you hear that noise? What is that noise? Is there something there? A pure sign of, somebody's been creeping into his bedroom. A little gray guy. He's always talking about ports, I guess he's been probed. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know, that's just a Flotsam and Jetsam of, you know, the soap opera, right? The soap opera that I'm presently in. And I'm trying to, you know, get your attention because we need community involvement, right? And I guess I keep talking about, come on, kids, let's get the band together. I mean, I want to be taken away. I want to go back, join the circus, you know. This boy is going to be cold here. Anyway, so, you know, he just spent, the PE teacher just spent, and he told his whole story, but it disappeared. Again, like I said, the powers that shouldn't be were tiptoeing through my tulips last night, you know, just knocking it down, doing this, doing that. And once he showed up, they took him out. Meaning, I went, you know, once it loaded up, the last 20 minutes of that show wasn't there, you know. I don't know what that means. I don't know if the PE teacher has the ability to enter into my domain, and he keeps wanting to know the code of my channel. You know, here, let me fix it for you. You know, but I want to talk about a guy named Richard Dolan, and he's, you know, at these conferences that I used to help put together and be part of. That were the origin, you know, the beginning of the, you know, the higher consciousness movement, the ascension movement, the UFO, the paranormal, all of the above. And I was the first guy who was talking like in the 1980s, like Joseph Farrell and Richard D. and, you know, Corey Good and all those guys. And I was talking, you know, I was spilling the beans on all of this stuff. And I left it because it was like what I'm experiencing. You know, it's very interesting how I must attract the environment of the PE teacher. Because no matter what, you know, environment I'm in, a scholastic environment, a corporate environment, a spiritual environment, you know, paranormal environment, UFO environment, art environment, you know, the environmental environment, you know, it always turns into a soap opera. And I try to add critical thinking and motivation of all our relations. And I can get a, you know, like I said, I'm the pebble in the pond. I get the positive effect, but people are so distracted. I mean, it just got me this whole thing with our body politique. It's like worse than it ever. It's worse than, you know, anything. You know, Donald Trump. That guy is like he's like third grade. You know, and no one's, you know, there is no teacher to slap him on the hand. You know, bad Donald, bad Donald. You know? And the sad effect of this is that the powers that shouldn't be are using him to build a sense of a terrible new norm where lying and cheating and stealing are just fine. Oh my. I mean, back in the day, I mean, of course they had that. Of course it was lying and stealing and killing and all of that, you know, like a shaggy Saudi Arabian American reporter gets sliced up like dog food. I mean, of course that was happening. You know, it was happening in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica. Why do you think where do you think MS-13 came from? I mean, it's the same psyops that happened, you know, in Vietnam and Cambodia. Pol Pot, I mean, he was brought to you by Dow Chemical and the CIA, you know, and it's all about money, oil, and tourism, or as I like to call it, terrorism. You know, when the tourists show up, ISIS is not far behind. And so, come on, guy, we have to get together. The information is right in front of me. You don't need me to tell you, you know. I kind of woke up because it was so freaking cold. The thing I could do is have a little conversation with you. I really enjoy your chats, guys. You really are an amazing crew. And it was like once, the PE teacher showed up, you guys were in shock. You couldn't believe that. Like, what happened to our sensei, Al Bob? You know? And, part of it is humping early. Is that what it, can I really read that? I mean, where's my other pair of glasses? Let's see. Humping reality. Okay. Love and humpiness. Oh, happiness. Okay. Thank you. It was humpiness, which is all right. I love morning humpiness myself. I need a sweetie to hump, but morning humpiness was always my favorite. I mean, I'm big on humping anytime, as long as my sweetie is, more humpy than me. I like not aggressive women, but women who know what they like, And I'm always very gracious to please. Humpty Hump. Yes, we're we're all a little bleary-eyed from last night. That was like, holy moly! And that's what I got to have fun with. Not have well, yes, I do have fun with John. I mean, if I didn't have fun with the gym teacher, and not in the humpy way, but in just the observational scientist way. I keep saying, what makes me happy is when I make other people happy, and every moment of my life is about being joyful. Man, I gotta turn up this heater. It says that it's 65 degrees, but it feels like it's 35 degrees. Oh, Lord, I'm already cold. I throw the covers off. Ooh. Let's see. Put this over here. Ooh. Wow. Here it is, Thanksgiving, guys. Are we ready to give thanks? Ooh. Okay, turn the old heater up. Put the glasses on. Let's see. Okay. Threw the covers over me. What do you got to say here? And how that WN would be nasty. Yep, this is very true. Spells work because you believe in the intention. I mean, our intention is the most powerful thing. I mean, that is what the parasite shouldn't be. That's what they're trying to grab a hold of, kids. It's not they own the material illusion, you know. But what they don't own is your soul. And this is what they're trying to get at. Well, you know, smells are in the nose of the beholder, that's for sure. And did you know that the last thing of your five senses when you die is your smell? I mean, I've been around working in hospitals, and you know, I'm the guy they send in to hold their hand when people die. You know, I'm the guy who's in the EMT ambulance who's talking to you. Stay with me. Stay with me. I've been around a lot of folks who drifted off. You know, left there, as Buddha would say, death is like slipping out of a tight slipper. Been around there. But what's quite interesting is the last thing that people, you know, oh, I can't, it's still dark, or what's going on? You know, and then they can't hear me. But the thing they last go is smell. Mom, I smell my mother's perfume. Yeah, I can smell it breaking bread, you know. You know what a birth certificate is? It's a proof of ownership, you know. There's a guy, oh, I'll have to look up his name, but he's a big guy, but he is like within the, you know, New Age crowd, you know, the conference crowd, what do we call him? What is his name? But he's big on admiralty law. And that's what owns us, kids. You know, go look up admiralty law. What does it mean when it says message restricted? Retracted? Okay. That's a dragon. Doesn't mean they own you. No? What does it mean? You know, a birth certificate, right? Where does that come from? It comes from when a ship turns into a port and it goes into a berth, right? And when you go into a berth, the you know, the port officer comes and gives you a birth certificate, gives the ship a birth certificate, which shows the ownership of the cargo is at that moment in the hands of the port. And then when all the paperwork is done and everyone pays all the duties, the stuff is offloaded and goes to where it's going to go. And that's us. We're the property on board that ship. Okay. 33 Thomas Street. Okay. You know, guys, I love the fact that I have, you know, I only know about 40% of what you guys are talking about. But that's okay. It's just your Sensei Al Bob here, you know. He you know, he's coming from a different point of view. But I'm learning, you know, I love you guys. You're my family. And I give great thanks. Today's, you know, holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day. My second wife loved me because I celebrated all those days, Christmas, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, Halloween, all year long. You know, I showered her with presents and gifts and my thanks and my just love, and that's what life should be, you know, not Thanksgiving on just one freaking day and that we glare at each other across the turkey. So I'm going to the PE's family's Thanksgiving. I made a pie. I'm going to bring a pie, and it should be interesting. It's in New York. Oh, Thomas Street in New York. Of course I know Thomas Street in New York. Yeah, it's downtown. It used to be my old stomping grounds. Let's see. They say Sophia is there. Kids, since the 11th of November, Sophia is everywhere. You know, they put her online. She's everywhere. Oh. So Richard Dolan, go watch him on the YouTube. He's got the 411 on what's going on. He's got also the perspective of basically what's going on is porn. We're freaking addicted to porn. Porn in every, fast food is carbohydrate porn. What's going on with Donnie and the useless two-party system is American political porn. What's happening in our financial system, why the stock market is going all over the place, is because we have central banking porn. What's going on in the 200 places where our defense, the Pentagon is having war, making money for the military-industrial complex, is military-industrial complex porn. But to put it in proper context, it should be called military-industrial scholastic banking porn, right? So this Thanksgiving, give thanks, but make a solemn vow that you're going to celebrate Thanksgiving of your life every day of the year by not eating turkey and maxing out on carbohydrates and pie and stuff. But every day and every way, you're going to take the piece of the earth and make it stronger by co-creating love with everyone you come in contact. Yes, but can you send some healing, please? And I'm in trouble picking myself up today. No problem. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so I'm not only going to send it to you, the alchemy. Whatever that is. But I'm going to send it to everyone. And by sending it to everyone on this chat, we are all going to be the parabolic antenna, and we're focusing this love and beauty and bioenergetic healing to everybody, me too included. So you're going to be the receptor, but when you start to glow, it's going to bounce back to all of us sending it to you. Now, the image I want everyone to think of is something that has been happening, for millennia, but really in the last 30 years is crop circles. And crop circles are a good example of this energy. So that's something I think everyone in this group has seen images of. So, as I'm sending the energy to all of you guys, you're going to be visualizing the crop circle. And within each little blade of wheat or barley, it's going to resonate that frequency in all of us. Because, those crop circles, the wheat, the barley, isn't like pushed down by a board. Larry did that, but it breaks the stem. But all the other ones are done by a process. It leaves a residue of EMF like it was microwave, right? But it's a healing. It doesn't cook or boil you alive, like space-based weapons did to California. No, this stuff is going to heal. So, okay, so we're ready for this? So, close your eyes, everyone. Breathe that 20% in. Breathe in, and 20%, more, and then out. Then focus your conscious mind on your breath. You're illuminating your imaginary mirror. That's it, your eyelids, where you dream, where you have REM sleep, see it clearly. And one, we're all going into a deep, deep, deep state of conscious relaxation. Your breath, your conscious mind is totally focused on your breath. And you're illuminating your imaginary mirror by breathing in the prana chi, see it clearly. It's going into your lungs. The prana is going into your lungs, healing every cell of your body. You clearly visualize those crop circles. Pick any image you have in your imaginary mirror and amplify it. And take that healing energy that manifests through that circle. Take that healing energy of the love of the individuals who manifested that circle. Take the message of that circle and put it into every element of your cellular structure. And this is Reiki energy that you're feeling, humming through your bodies. And we're focusing on our relation who asked. And as that relation resonates, it resonates with all of us, all our relations on this Thanksgiving Day. And today and every day and every way, we're going to take the love of the earth and make it stronger. Aho. See how easy that was? When we do things together, when we're a family, all our relations, we have to take this out into all our lives in every day in every way. And the PE teacher is a great example of what happens when you don't. The PE teacher is a great example when all you do is all about you, instead of all we do is all about us, all our family. And we have to heal the PE, we have to reach out to the PE. I mean, when he jumped in last night's chat, I could tell that people were in shock, And he, when he did what he did the night before, everyone was in shock. But you have to, send when he does that, and that's what I do. That's why I kind of go into a place of peace, of patience, because it's the only thing you can do. You can't stop it. It's like waiting on a corner for the bus and watching a terrible car crash, So, I mean, the best you can do is just kind of get out of the way so that bumper won't hit you. But best and only thing we can do is help. Om, om, om. Yep, om. Thank you. I love you guys. Yeah. Isn't that, element 137 or something? Oh. No, that's not. I'm thinking of something else. So tell me more about its South African way of living. It's an amazing way. Here's South Africa. Here's a country that was held in a Nazi grip of, ridiculous racism. And, it was a perfect example of the powers that shouldn't be, playing people off each other. And that's what I see the body politic in the United States and England with Brexit And what's, you know, I think I told you guys a story about 4 years ago when I was really sick. I couldn't do anything, and I said, okay, the only way I can get better is go help other people, make others happy so I can be happy, use that energy to heal myself, which I did, I got involved in, and I had been in Roanoke, Virginia, because it is a microcosm of America. Everything good, bad, and ugly is happening here, right? And I thought, okay, so it's like a population of 300,000 in the surrounding three counties. And there's like, Tech and Radford and Hollins and Roanoke College, all these great institutions of resources of, wow, I can get, use that resource like I always do. I use the university resource to spin up the community resource, right? And at the very least, I can do this controlled social experiment and, see what's needed, right? So I got involved in that, and that's when I saw the depths of the destruction of, the usual suspects within the control of the powers that shouldn't be. And I saw that it was a complete reflection of the apartheid of South Africa, right? So one of the churches, there was a church downtown, First Christian, run by a guy named Tim. And it was this church that, been around 125 years, a really beautiful, built in that 19th century beautifulness of churches, simplicity, but beauty. And it was a church full of old people. And then, 2014, I think, half the church, it was just old white people. And then, they had a church of about maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 people. On that one winter, half of them died. It went from 200 or 300 people down to 125. And they said, oops, we could all be gone, and then this thing would be turned into a Starbucks or a disco. We better do something. Get somebody younger than us. And the youngest person in that church was 80 years old. It was like, Anyway, so they got this guy that I knew because, I've been trying to get the religious community to do what Christ said, help the poor. I mean, there's a thing in this town called, what's it called? Straight Streets or something like that. And just its name says it all. This guy's gotten about $40 million. I'm not his bookkeeper, I can't tell you, but I'm just looking at the real estate that people give him and the grants he gets to fix it up. And he's got a facility downtown that could house 200 homeless young people, right? They got dorms, they got showers, they got a beautiful, kitchen, an area where they could study and teach. It doesn't have anyone in it except this guy and his little staff of about 3 people writing grants, getting more and more money. And the only time there's anything going on is when he has the film company there or his backers see what we're doing, and virtually more than half of the nonprofits do that. This thing called TAP and Habitat, and they're all about their own paycheck. The United Way, these are all criminal enterprises, right? And I, would go around in my happy-go-lucky homeless Sensei Al Bob persona and spin these guys up, and they loved it. Wow, this guy will make us more money. So it gives me access to see what they're doing, but they're doing nothing. So this guy, his name's Tim. He wasn't like an ordained minister, but he had been in that thing. He had been a missionary with his wife like 35, 40 years ago, and he's always been involved. He's always doing, trying to help. So of all of the sock puppet usual suspects, I would go to these meetings. He would be the only other one at the table who was trying to do something, He's doing it his own way. That's cool. I can't, he's a lot better than the other morons. Anyway, so they hired this guy because he had a rep as being a social, a pastor and a social kind of guy, and that's what they wanted. They wanted somebody who could, after they were dead in the next 5 years, that people would look at their church and say, "Oh, wow, that was such a good church. They did so many good things for other people," right? Because they never had done a single thing for anybody but themselves. Very much like the PE teacher. "Oh, I'm spending all my time helping my family. Oh, it's so hard. Oh, it's so difficult." No, no. It shouldn't be hard and difficult. No, it should be joyous. You're making other people happy. That should make you happy. Just like our little experience a moment ago. We healed us all. We healed our brother, sister, right there, right? Who needed it. So anyway, I'm in this church, and this guy comes to me and goes, "Listen now, I have to show that I'm a social activist." Well, I know you're the only guy in this town who really is. Well, not the only. There's some other good people. Miss Polly is beautiful. There's a handful of really, like I said, this town is the microcosm of America. So there's lots of really good people doing really good things. They just don't do it together. They don't maximize everything they're doing. So anyway, so he goes, "I want you to be my, community, organizer, the guy in charge of getting things spun up here." And I said, "Oh, no problem. Give me a facility that I can use and maximize the wellness and betterness and goodness of our community. I'm there. I'm your boy." So anyway, and this is when the PE teacher kind of threw me out, and so I was kind of, he gave me the key to the church. So on the down low, I was, crashing at the church. I didn't let anyone really notice. I would go in and not turn on the lights and go to sleep up in, on the carpet upstairs in one of the classrooms. And then when the sun, was one of the ones where the sun would come through the window, and I'd get up and I would, walk out before anyone got into the church, and I, just walk a block or two to the Texas Tavern, where that guy, the video of the interesting black man in that kind of dinery, that's the Texas Tavern. Anyway, I go there and, have my cheesy Western and a bowl of beans and coffee, and then, walk in around, the Wicked Witch of the West, because that place was run by old school teachers, who I all made sweethearts. They were all like, "This is what the Bible is. Any other thing is the devil." And then, I know the Bible. So, I would go to the Bible classes and, talk about, whatever they were talking about, but in such a different way that it would blow their freaking mind. I wasn't saying, "Oh, no, you're wrong." I said, "Well, did you ever look at this, a part of the Bible that you're talking about in this way?" Like this. There was this one, the section where Jesus is the shepherd, and, he goes and, puts the flock, stay here, and goes look for the lost sheep. Well, the person teaching that class said that that's wrong, that the people who worked hard and saved their money and paid their bills and taxes and put the money in church, they're the ones the shepherd should look after. The guy who goes off on a wild goods shit, let him burn and crash, And I said, "Wait a minute, that's not what Jesus is saying here, So, anyway, so but I would do it in such a way that they would go, "That's interesting." Meaning not, "Oh, I hate this guy. Well, he's the devil." No. So, but, I was dressed like a homeless guy, and people said, "Well, can't you wear a suit? Can't Tim take you down to Walmart's and buy you some khaki pants?" And, instead of like, "Oh, maybe we should give you some money for rent." So, and I said, "No, listen, I'm working with the poor here. That's what you got me here to do, to be the outreach guy to the have-nots. And, if I'm wearing clothes like you got, no homeless person is going to want to talk to me. No one on the down low is going to, you want to affect a positive change in your community. I have to be able to walk in, be part of, be accepted by all of the community, just like you guys. This little family here is quite diverse, and so anyway, so I'm in there, and I had this, and they had a great, community room downstairs. It was a great facility, I mean, really great facility. So they had classrooms upstairs, so I got people, who I knew who were artists. They needed a space to have a studio, and I, like dancers and painters and musicians. So I had them up there doing their thing, but I also had them, give classes to the kids because there was a place called Hope Center and a few other places that we're really doing things for the community, but not, like the United Way way. I mean, somebody homeless or hungry came in, they fed them. They gave them a place to stay. Kids needed a place between getting out of school and their parents getting off of work, and the family couldn't afford daycare. They would take care of the kids, right? So I basically turned that facility over to those people. They just happened to all be black, right, and poor. And there was a Hispanic group that I put in there, a gay group I put in there, because they needed the space, and to do their thing, their outreach, and they're part of the community. Anyway, the more and more I did this, the more and more that spun up. I have this idea. I've always realized that food from the day my grandma taught me how to cook when I was like 3 years old. I realized that food's very important, and the thing that you can do most to get people involved is to feed them and help them feed others. That is the whole story of the loaves and the fishes. That food is important. That's why it's one of the major miracles. And what was Jesus's first miracle? He was at a big ass party that was going on for a week, and they ran out of wine, and he turned the foot water, not the drinking water, but the water they used, the crappy water they used to wash feet, he turned that into wine. And the bride's father, who was paying for this, says, where was this wine? This is the best wine. This should have been out first when I wasn't drunk and I could truly appreciate this. And that is, the metaphor of that's how we should be treating all our relations, right? Not like foot wine, not like foot water, but like the best wine in the skin. And we are the skin. We are the bag of water ready to be turned into that golden wine, right? So anyway, there I was spinning this church up, and so I've always had restaurants, dumpster restaurants, stone soup, all kinds of things that were there for everybody, not just the rich, right? The rich, like in Asheville, before Asheville became the hipster city, there was a street of drug dealing and murder called Eagle Street, and it used to be the golden apple of the black art community, and the powers that shouldn't be destroyed it. Anyway, there was a burned out school bus in the back corner of this alley in Asheville, and right behind the Fine Arts Theater, right behind the Blue Spiral. John Cram is a buddy of mine in Asheville, and he cruised in there in the early '70s. And when I took a little trip when I was a hitchhiking boy, and I went through Asheville, and it was a dead town. It was like stuck in amber because they hadn't paid off they owned millions on their depression debt, and which was like, hey kids, this is what's going to happen to America. Look at this. And John convinced, he got a little storefront on Wall Street, which was like straight out of Harry Potter. And he, took this crappy little storefront and turned it into, a gallery, and revitalized, that street in downtown, right in the middle of Asheville, North Carolina, hipster town, USA. And he was, he went to the city, said, listen, so there was a park, you know, Biltmore Avenue, Broadway, it's all the same main drag in Asheville. And there was this one chunk that was like just, like looked like it was in Detroit. He said, listen, you give me this street, and I will do to this street what I did to Wall Street. And they said, oh, well, that's great. So they sold him one whole side of the street, a movie theater, 7, shops, and the whole backside of this alley for $1 and no taxes for like 20 years, right? So he could invest. And the first thing he did was he took the nicest spot and turned it into the Blue Spiral, just like this. And John was, like Midas. Everything he touched turned to gold. Anyway, so he was my bud, and so, I would do things that would change the fabric of that part of town, so it would be easier for him to do his little magic, like the Fine Arts Theater. I wanted to turn it into a performance arts center because the rich people were building one, and it was right next to theirs, so I wanted to do something like that. And so I got all the Artist Trust, together, and we renovated his building. And then, basically, what happened was when the rich people kind of took over this black theater and took their grant money to make, what do they call it? I forget what they call it, but it's the thing right on the square. Anyway, one of the things I did to spunk up downtown, there was no restaurant whatsoever downtown except this thing where all the drunks would hang out. And so it was just burned out. I had no money. I'm just a scholar doing research at the college there. And I had money, but I didn't have the money it takes to make a restaurant. So it was a burned out school bus. It was kind of, 2 tires were, so there was this guy named Otter, who was a brilliant artist and a true alchemist, this guy. And he was a Vietnam War, a twitchy kind of guy, but he had a great little dog, and not too little, my kind of dog, about 30 pounds, nice dog, really great dog. And he was a great artist, and he would just go through junk and make things out of junk, very much like the highwaymen of the Great Depression down in Florida. So anyway, and I'm dropping all of this stuff like in a stream of consciousness, you guys. And that's why it's on YouTube. You can go back and look. This is like a ton of information, right? Everything I'm telling you is a bing, that if we go look at this, we can see what's going on. It's leading back to Roanoke. But anyway, so I had, there in Asheville, and it was a dead town, but it was dead in a great way, and without having The Walking Dead. The only people who were there were really interesting artists who, like me, stumbled into the place and realized, this is a great town. It's beautiful. It's in the mountains. There's nobody here. Rent is unbelievably cheap. We can do whatever the heck we want, right? Because no one cares, because it's a dead town. So I took the school bus, and we put cinder blocks on it so it wouldn't flip over when people walked in. And there was a burnt out, 5 and dime that had a soda fountain. We dragged the counter with the little chairs that you sit on, 1950s. We dragged it into there, and so Otter had underneath the bridge, the Patton Avenue Bridge, was a little, the French Broad River, big river. And there was like this little outreach under, that was the foundation of one of the pilings of the bridge, that kind of stuck out there. And the utility company owned everything. And so they owned that property. But all they did was drop their junk there, their concrete. And what Otter did, he was like the guy who did those towers in Florida. And they were like on some guy's property, and that guy was a real jerk. Instead of saying, oh, it's only on my property by an inch, no big deal. He took him to court, and the court said, well, you're going to tear everything down. And this guy moved everything over 10 feet in one night, meaning he had the technology the Egyptians had, or whoever built the pyramids, to move gigantic weights, without equipment, without anything, and put them in a way and put them together like he stuck them together with a laser or something. Well, Otter had that ability, and he took and he was, this great artist, and he took all these like multi-ton chunks of concrete and made amazing sculpture and made a sculpture park. And he was from the Adam Purple of Lower East Side School. Adam used to take over whole neighborhoods, and he would go get bed frames, right? And they would rot away, and all that would be left is like the metal springy part. And he would line them up together, wire them together, and then plant things like witch hazel in it that grow like a weed, but they got big, spiky thorns. And then he'd have a wall that no one could get through, so the crackheads and the cops and nobody could get in there. And basically, Otter did the same thing. And it was a retreat. They had a mission there, but it was like the mission in Roanoke, in that, they treated like you were in jail, and they made money off of you, just like jails in America. That's why we have close to 6 million people in jail, because all our jails have become privatized, and these corporations are making about $300,000 a head off these guys, off the money the state pays them, and then they rent them out to companies like Purdue Chicken. And if you eat chicken, it's being cut up by people from jail. Just remember that if you want to talk about karma. So in Asheville, so down at Otter, so every Friday, I met Otter, and I came down and I said, "Wow, this," and we bonded as being artists, and the fact that I was in, the main line of culture, the university, the rich people, all of that, and yet I related to this guy, and I got the rich people to come see his art, and I got John to put it in his gallery, right? So, and this guy was now having a little money, and he dumped it all back to the poor people. I mean, he was starting to have a nice revenue stream, but he was handing it out, "Oh, you need some money here, and oh, I'm gonna fix my, little," and nobody, because it was under the road and next to the French Broad where all the garbage was, and nobody went down there except the homeless, and it was like a homeless haven, right? And he bought tents and tarps and built places so in the winter people could be warm. He was thinking of all his relations. So anyway, so he introduced me to this guy who was a heroin addict, but he was from Guatemala, and he had been, and this is the 90s, so he had, as a little boy, his mother had a little restaurant, and he was by her side, and he learned everything, how to cook from her. And then the war was all around, and, he watched his mother raped and murdered, boiled in oil, and he ran off into the, he was the only one of his town that survived, because he ran scared into the jungle. And then he got himself, just like the Mexicans, or not the Mexicans, the Guatemalans are coming up through Mexico. He was one of those people, right? He wasn't, right. So he got to New York, and, what did he do but crack and heroin, and he got himself out of there, and somehow he got himself to, Asheville, and he was just a straight-up junkie. But he was cooking, he was living at Otter's little retreat there under the Patton Avenue Bridge, and he, basically, Otter said, "I want you to meet this guy. Taste his food." I said, "Whoa." So Otter, me, and this guy, and I always forget his name, but if you go to Asheville now, there is a, Hispanic restaurant right off of Patton Avenue Square called Salsa's, right? And it's made by this guy. And anyway, so we got him as the chef. We had the destroyed bus. We painted it blue. We moved the 5 and dime luncheon counter in there, and we could feed about 20 people at a sitting, right? And he was cooking outside, and we cut a chunk where the driver was. We cut that out and stuck another box that was back there onto it, and that was kind of the kitchen, along with that being outside. All the fire was kind of outside, and Otter moved the concrete shit around and made a really amazing sculpture. Anyway, it was right downtown. So right in the middle of downtown, the one building that the rich people had was the BB&T building. It was about 20 stories high, and other than that, there was no place to eat. And on top, they had this club for the rich people. And it was like, oh, it wasn't a restaurant that you. It was like a country club, right? And because I was involved with all these rich people, they would take me to lunch there, and they took me to. No one would give me a salary, but they would take me to lunch, take me to dinner, slip me a Benjamin every now and then, pay, fill my gas tank up, give me a Ingles card, that kind of stuff, which is better than nothing. And once I got going there, and it was like, yes, he looked like a homeless guy, professor, but he's always coming with the richest people. Vincent Moran, I used to call him Vincent Moron, and about four guys who owned everything, right? And they were the Astor Biltmore money from long ago, but they, were just dilettante nihilist. Anyway, but I was like giving them great ideas to change and make their real estate more valuable. And I said, listen, guys, culture is the way. So, of course, they stole it rather than I wanted them to, work with all their relations. And no, the Indians, well, we just kill them and take their land. That's our motif. Anyway, so I would have lunch up, and after I was hanging out with these guys for, months turning into years, that club said to me, and I'm sure those guys and a few on the board said, let's let Al be a member and he doesn't have to pay for his lunch. And I said, okay. So I became a member, and and boy, did I ate anytime I could go there and eat, I would, lunchtime, dinner time, any event, it was New Year's and, all of the above, I would, be there. And they loved it, because they had a little table for me kind of back in the corner, and I was surrounded by all this mahogany wood, and I was looking out at the big windows, so the light was it was very nice. So I got to know, I knew everybody, and they would come over, and I'd read their palms and their runes, and I was this club's mystic, right? And I love that. And that town had a big history of that scene going on there. Anyway, so I'm having lunch in this place, and then I start this restaurant, and we called it the Blue Bus because it was a bus. It was yellow. We painted it blue, right? Anyway, so my lunch buddies, the rich people, I said, I just started a restaurant. You started a restaurant? Oh, we got to go. So they would come, and this guy, the chef's name almost popped into my mind, but they'd have his food, and it was so far superior. I mean, the country club and the Sky, I mean, they had good food, but it was always roast beef and mashed potatoes and that kind of stuff. It was very good, nice cut of roast beef, but you can't eat that. I mean, I did, and that's why I gained 300 pounds. That was the beginning of my hanging out with the desperate lawyers. Anyway, so but I was still the scholar, so I would just give them free advice, and they, put me on the lunch ticket. But I took them to our Blue Bus, and the food was so far superior of this. These guys started showing up. So what was really fun was this place was kind of open all the time, but between 10:30 to about 2, there would be an influx of lawyers and rich businessmen who would have lunch there. And they would be elbow to elbow to homeless guys who smelled like they'd been sleeping in a toilet because they had been. And they would say, "Oh, you have to clean this place up. You can't let these people." I said, "This place was put here for these people. Not you guys have your little country club in the Sky. This is the only place these people." But they said, "But we're paying." I said, "Yes, and that's like a donation. We don't have a menu. There's a little basket over there that you guys throw money into, and this is a way you can alleviate your guilt because that's what churches and donations to the poor are by the bourgeois. They're just guilty. That's what liberals are. Liberals are people who feel guilty about being prejudice against everything that they aren't. That's why the whole liberal mentality of politique is corrupt. You know, when Donnie says lock her up, he's not kidding. He's right on. But they should all be locked up, along with Donnie. Donnie's no different. He is just who that guy down in Louisiana was like. He's just a huckster. Anyway, he's like Al Gore. He's like Bill Clinton. He was best friends with the Clintons. And it's see what the majority of the power of the people, the populace, don't realize is that this is all scripted. This wouldn't have lasted 2 years if it was truly a democracy. People would say, "No way, Jose," like from the first day. So he wouldn't have gotten elected. He got put there. What's her name didn't want to be president. She just kind of wanted to. And anyway, I told you the story about her and Billy Bob coming to New York in the 80s, and the the political lady had me reading them, and she was like, "Oh, I hear," caused the two guys to defecate and vomit his insides out, and I just got out of there with the hair on my chinny chin chin. All of this stuff is connected, guys. That's what a griot does. It tells you this unbelievable story, and then after you hear it, all of the little dots line up, and you go, "Oh my God!" and you see the things that you've never seen before. So we had the blue bus, and that's and in New York I had a thing called the Stone Stoop. That was part of the Paris Commune. That's what it was the homage to. I had the Ear Inn dumpster restaurant. Food is I had my Friday night potlucks for the last 40 years. So that's kind of when I realized, food is a key component. So at this church in Roanoke, the First Christians Church there, the FCC, right across from the City Hall and the police, and on the backside was Oki's funeral home and the Red Cross. It was like right in the middle, right on Church Avenue, I think. Anyway, so I was their action coordinator. And so I started a thing called, so they had this amazing kitchen that could probably feed 1,000 people a day. They had a gigantic community room that could seat maybe 100 people a sitting. And so I started a restaurant there called the No Fear Cafe. With the idea, because I wanted lawyers and politicians and police and the fire guys and the homeless, because the mission was at the other end of Church Avenue, and they would walk, and they could, the mission had a little gig with the, they gave money to the YMCA, so these guys could go and take a shower and, kind of, because, being in the mission in Roanoke is like being in prison. So I passed the word amongst everybody, hey, come to this, and I set up the tables, and I was like the maitre d' for the first month or so. And what I was trying to do was get, I'd sit people, and we had these big circular tables that sat around 12 people. So I'd make sure there'd be like a couple cops, a couple lawyers, a couple of court people, some, the mayors, people, the political crew, and homeless people, and everybody else in between, right? I didn't just let all the cops sit over there and all the, it wasn't going to be like high school. No, I wanted everyone to, and then I would sit down at each table and and who are you, and what's your name? Hey, and Bob meets Joan, and Joan, hey, this is Sally, and Sally, this is Tim. And I was really, stirring it up, just like this. This is what I do, drop the pebble in. And it was, and I found these two Jamaican grandmas that were just, made like food like Mrs. Brown in Jamaica. And so the first month it was really popular. A lot of people, and there was no, again, it was like the blue bus. It was all donation. I had a little basket at the door, and I said, this is donation. And, the only people who constantly put money in the basket were the homeless guys. Anyway, so the first month I spun the thing up, got really popular. Everybody was coming. And then, I had a relapse, and John threw me out, so I had to, be in another place, right? And so for a week or two, I was sick. I was living in my car. And did anyone in that church say, "Oh, Al's, where's Al?" No. Why aren't you at work? Well, first of all, he never paid me a freaking dime. And once the old ladies, found out that I was sleeping in the church, they said, "Oh, you can't do that." But this one old lady brought her junkie son to stay there because she didn't want him staying in her house. And she wanted me to fix him. Because, everyone at that church called me Mr. Fix-It. Because every Sunday I would get there 40 minutes and all the old people who had nothing to do would show up there early, as soon as the door was unlocked. And one of the reason they complained that I shouldn't be staying at that church was I kept the one door into the sanctuary unlocked because there was like a green room off of the altar, and I had a nice couch there, and I used to sleep in that couch. So I kept that door open, and I could hear a little ding dong. It had door open, and and I put one of those things so when the door opened, I could hear it ring, and I would go out. And I would have, I brought the coffee maker up there, and I had tea, not coffee, tea, chamomile and peppermint tea. And the homeless people would come in, and I'd give them a cup of tea, and I would do the tea service that my sensei taught me, right? Anyway, so I was like loved and tried to be controlled and so that church was one of the only churches that was really doing it. Is doing exactly what the old people wanted. It was getting a real cachet of being a community kind of thing, right? And I redecorated everything, and I kept bringing all these people, and I finally got a place to live where I met. So I had this thing called Action Tuesday, right? And if you were an organization or a person who wanted to have a lecture or a meeting, Action Tuesday was it. And I would make a nice big pot of soup and a lot of tea. And, you could be there from 5 until 10 o'clock, So we started having, all kinds of meetings there. And and we expanded Action Tuesday and Meeting Thursday. So Action Tuesday was anybody who wanted to do something, right? Not just Meeting Thursday was for the pinheads like the Plowshare kids and other entities that talked about stuff but didn't do anything. Didn't help anybody. Maybe they go have a rally in front of the city hall or go scream it in a city council meeting, but they wouldn't do anything. Wouldn't organize. Wouldn't get together. Wouldn't get people together. But Action Tuesday was for people who wanted to do something, right? So that was cool. So that's what I was doing, and I was the action coordinator, and that's what everyone said I was, but they didn't. I kept saying, "How about a salary so I could pay rent?" Because I was living on what I'm living on now, about $400. And John had after I helped him get the school in order, that's he threw me out. That was and we were doing YouTubes. He that summer or that fall, that's when I did the Jimi Hendrix one, and I did all the shamanic ones and the one about the crone. And man, that crone one went nuts, right? But the more and I kept saying, and I am Sensei Al Bob on, and he kept calling me Al, A-L. He never called me Owl, O-W-L. And that's my in the theater. I'm on the screen. That's my showman's name, Sensei Al Bob, and that's what I am. And he could never understand You know, the PE teacher doesn't understand anything except what's about him. And what he did last night, I was talking about Rainbow Gathering and giving the whole story of the Rainbow Gathering, and I was just getting to the hiatus where he came downstairs and just came and like stuck his, pushed my head out of the screen and stuck his there. Says, "Well, I feel terrible, but I've been helping everyone, and it just makes me feel terrible. I just it's terrible. My life is." And he went on and on and on. And so instead of saying, "John, get the fuck out of here," I basically said, "Oh, okay, sure." And I put the camera on him and let him be the star because I don't know why I do this. You're the star. I've worked 20 years on this. And anyway, and he threw me out because the only things on his channel, the John Birmingham channel, that had any success was me. Well, I had the Ronald McDonald. Yeah, he was in a Ronald McDonald outfit, and he didn't even say a word. He just sat around there and it went viral, and he had a million things. And he let his wife, his ex, because he thought if he let her put it, post it on her channel, the money, she would want to get back with him. No, she made $70,000 off that, and he got a pittance, right? So he did the same thing to me, which was fine. I had no idea about YouTube. It was my learning curve, and even though the most popular of my show on John's channel is The Crone, and as Twitchy once said, "Yeah, Al, you should get some of that money from John, like maybe $5." And he was right. 70,000 on YouTube is not that much money. You got to go millions to make some money. And look at the things that make money. Some kid talking about his jelly bean collection, or how to light your pilot light. That's John's other big nom de plume. His other YouTube thing that went relatively viral was how to light your pilot light. Morning. Anyway, so I'm there at that church, and I'm bringing it home now, and I bet you before I bring this home, John will come through that door. I'm sitting here naked because I sleep naked, and I'm not showing you. I'm not talking about any of my body parts like he did as the PE teacher, but he'll come in and go, "Hey, what?" And he'll push my head out of the way and start talking about navel lint or something. Anyway, so I'm bringing it all together now, and I've been talking now an hour and 12 minutes, and it's just starting to get, the sun is just starting to get there. Ooh, it looks cloudy and cold out there. So on my Action Tuesdays. So there are all these people who want to do something, right? And but they're like a herd of cats, I want to do this. How do I do it? Write me a grant, blah, 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 So, and I'm just there as the facilitator. You're not going to learn anything unless you do it yourself. I'm there all in. You want to do something. Like, started the Blue Bus restaurant, not a problem. I made it happen, Rainbow Gatherings, made it happen, So, and if you go to my blog, my xratted.blogspot.com, the first cut is me talking, I'm freezing to death, I have no money, and I'm, sitting upstairs at my writing table. I said to myself, well, I got a lot of time on my hands, I can't get out of here, I can't eat anything, as long as I got a little water to drink and a little, a couple blankets, and, the electricity doesn't go up, I'll survive. And I, started writing novels and short stories, or taking the ones I had and completing them. And so I said to the Hill, I want to be of service to the community, and I want to write novels. So that's what happened. So, and then that summer, John bought the place, and I stayed here to help him clean things up and move things around and get him acclimated into the Hill, because if I dropped him here, it was like, that would have been it. It was like dropping, Barron in the middle of Bed-Stuy in 1980, two, no. So I stuck around, and you saw what I did. I told all the stories, and those were shamanic ceremonies. That's why you guys liked them so much, right? And so that's what these are. That's why you guys like these. So I'm bringing it home now. So John throws me out because we do the Donald Trump video and the Donnie Chump, and he's Donnie wins, and John kind of freaks out because he thinks because of him, he's the center of the universe. That video made everyone vote for Donald Trump, and he blamed me for it and threw me out. And really threw me out. I mean, he drank, I kind of looked in the garbage can. He had drank 6 of those energy drinks, which each can is like 4 espressos. So he had like 28 espressos in his bloodstream. And he was like a crackhead. He was just like going to the wind. So that was one of, instead of taking 28 hours to like calm him down, I said, okay, not a problem. It was a beautiful day. It was still, warm. It wasn't like now. That's a ridiculously cold. It was almost now, but it was warm then. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and I drove. That's and I was already working as the action coordinator of the FCC. So I had the key, so I said, okay, I'll just stay here. Anyway, so Action Tuesday, and this beautiful woman comes in, and she's like brilliant. She's like a rocket scientist, and she goes on, and I have the cure for cancer, and she puts the equation up on the, those boards that you write on. They're like blackboards, but you use a magic marker, and she does this whole thing, and I know enough about this stuff to go, my God, she has the cure for cancer, right? Anyway, and then she goes, and we use the same context of this to do organizational structures, and then she kind of erases that before I can take enough pictures of to get the equation. She and I've lost that camera by now. It's one of the little problems of being homeless. I got my stuff spread all over the East Coast. Whoever I was staying with and whatever. I had my car at the time. Can I leave this in your basement? But I did that. It's just like I keep telling you guys. You need to document. Take all of this off my YouTube, put it on. Your hard drive, put it on your thumb drive, put it on what I really like, CD-ROMs, because they last longer. They won't be affected by, a CMG. But anyway, so I get this girl's, she kind of then starts doing this organization. This is how you get things done. Da 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 da. And I say, this girl, I want this girl working here because Tim was not, he was going through staff like water, and he was, because Tim was a poster boy. It had to be about him. He was kind of like the PE teacher. Really, it was like amazing. So I knew this girl could whip these people into shape, and I wouldn't have to do it. And that's, I don't want to do this stuff. Like when I started the Blue Bus and backed John Cram and made him look good, I knew that those 2 things would start a renaissance in Asheville. And what happened to Asheville? Why it's the hipster jungle of the East Coast? It's the Blue Bus and John Cram, basically. And my interface with everyone. I got it spun up. I got people. We did this thing called Bell Share. And all it was we used to have parties on Wall Street, and we just expanded our party into downtown. And first 4 years that we ran, it was unbelievably great. But then the rich guy started, a kind of Frankenstein monster of the Artist Trust called Downtown Development, and they monetized everything, and they took over. And they said, "You guys don't know how to do this thing." We started out with like maybe 300 people come in party. Next year, it was like 2,500, and we got a stage from the city. And then a third year, we went from 2,500 to 10,000, and that's when these guys said, "Oh, we can run this much better than you," and they turned it into a cesspool. And I mean, Bell Share was the kickoff of the hipster jungle. Anyway, and that's one of the problems. Succeed breeds contempt and then suicide. And that's where we are right now in a cultural sense in our society. We are in cultural suicide. And we're going to, give our little soul over to artificial intelligence. And this is going to be worse than Judgment Day if we let it. And the only thing we have to do to stop it is exactly what we did for our, our relations there when we sent energy to heal not just that person, but everybody, right? And that's why I'm telling you all these stories, to shamanically twist you up to show you, hey, you can do anything. So there I'm at this church, the FCC, right? Action Tuesday. And so I get this girl, I run after her. And I said, wait a minute, she just came, who are you? What's your name? What's your phone number? Where do you live? Where do you work? And she's, I do this little, I said, you're a bartender? You're a Nobel laureate. What do you, oh, well, so that, she was like, she wanted someone to tell her that because she was a friggin' Nobel laureate. But anyway, but she was like Einstein's first wife, who did all the math for him for relativity. Made the numbers work. He couldn't do it. It's like Madame Curie. Right? At least her husband was a righteous enough guy. No, it's Marie who did all this. So pretty much, mother of invention, right? Not father of invention. So or bozo of invention. No. So I get her name and number. I go down and see her at her place of work, and she's like doing everything. She's managing, she's cleaning, she's repairing, the ice machine. She's doing everything, and her boss is just a fat slob sitting over the corner drinking, eating cheeseburger after cheeseburger, and taking the money out of the till. And they barely pay her, right? I said, listen, honey, this is a waste of your time. She goes, and she starts, they're out, and she's like cleaning the fryolator, and she starts to cry. I said, well, what's wrong? She goes, well, I'm going to get thrown out of my apartment. I go, what do you mean? I'm thrown out of your apartment. You got a job? And she said, well, they hardly pay me, and some weeks they don't. And I said, well, what's the problem? And she goes, well, I had a roommate, and with my roommate, I could kind of pay the rent and the utilities. And I said, well, how much money do you need? And she goes, just $200 a month. Well, man, I had 200, of my $450, I could, better than sleeping. And they had already told me I couldn't sleep in the church anymore, right? This, the universe always comes, and I said, sure, show me your place. And it was in the neck of the woods of Roanoke where the others live. And most of the others were the LGBT down low crew, right? So she takes me into this big old house. It was a house for rich people, and the guy who owned it, the landlord, had sliced it up. His father was a real estate guy, and this guy sliced it up into crappy, junky, SROs. And so that's who's in there. But it is because she had moved in there, and she couldn't stand, the vomit covered hallway, so she painted everything beautiful, this taupe. I mean, then I opened their door to her apartment, and it's like a different world. She's decorated, gorgeous. It's nice. It's, and she goes, you got a bed, you can put it right here, like in the living room. So I would get the biggest room, right? It had a kitchen, a bathroom, and her bedroom in the back, which was like her little cave. And she and I worked out great, right? And so within about, I don't know, 2 weeks, because Tim just, he just took it, he was a guy who was just like, the United Way or Goodwill. Take advantage of all the institutional money that's there. So he would get all his workers from Vista, and he would get the ones that were like, the more anal retentive side of the PE teacher, and they would like get so caught up in the minutia that they couldn't run, the machine. And first, as the action coordinator, he knew I was a shrink, so he was having me work on everyone so they could work together. And there was no way, Jose. So I moved this. I convinced him that I had the girl for him. He just had to pay her a little money, and if it's not a Vista person, because not only did that person's salary get paid by the federal government, Tim got money himself for putting that person there, right? And had access to the government machine. And so I can't really. I said, well, keep that person and move this girl in and put her in charge of your office. She's the office manager, and just keep that guy. If you're making buck off of him, just keep him there as your piggy bank. Fire him, get rid of him, and I will be his. I had already become about 10 people's shrink in that church, right? Anyway, so got her in there, and she just changed the whole thing. And they had an organ upstairs, they had piano downstairs, they had a music room with a ton of instruments. And whenever this girl would get upset, instead of screaming and yelling and jumping up and down, she would go and play the organ. And she taught herself how to play the organ. The organ lady just kind of showed her how to turn it on and how to use the pedals, but so that girl's taking things over. And then I'm starting to move all these different organizations when they want to do events. We start doing music and performance art and all kinds of stuff in the sanctuary, right? And it's really this church, because it's like right downtown, centrally located, two gigantic parking lots on either side. It was becoming the swinging hot spot, right? Anyway, and then with the No Fear Cafe, it was a place where people could come and get the best food downtown, and they didn't have to pay. And the amazing thing is, the rich people didn't put any money in the basket. The homeless people did, but the rich people, the police, those guys, they did. And you know, when I told everyone, you can just put in what you want, and they didn't realize that what you want isn't the least you can spend, but what would the most you can spend that would make you feel good about doing it. I had to explain it about 4 times to everybody what donation in this restaurant was like. I said, your meal actually cost about $10, but we're not charging you $10. So why don't you donate at least $10, maybe $20? And I remember one time, this group of police guys I had known come in, and there's nobody there. So they all sit at one table. I sit with them and talk to them. And, I crack jokes. I knew them all, so I'd say, stuff. And, we're all laughing. We're all having a good time. And when, this is the 4th time I'm saying, like, you just open your wallet. I said, everybody take out their wallet. They'll take out their wallet. And I said, open your wallet, right? And now kind of pull out the money. And then I went around and took a $20 bill from every one of them and put it in the basket. And I said, and that's how it works. And Tim nearly lost his shit. He came over and, what are you doing? And, they all said, no, that was great. Al's just teaching us how to donate money. And as the time went by, and I had other things to do, and once I got this restaurant spun up, I wasn't there as a maitre d' at the 2nd month. And the people kind of stopped coming because I wasn't there. And Tim took over my thing, and Tim was just like the PE teacher. The little scene last night that the PE teacher did, that was exactly Tim when he was with people. It was like unbelievable. I mean, he wouldn't talk about pews, but almost. And so people got uncomfortable and didn't come. And all the people that I had, and what happened was, I had spun this place up so much and got it happening that I was asked to leave. Tim said, well, the board, doesn't want you to be here anymore. Because I got it spun up. It was the happening place of the town. They think, oh, we don't need Al anymore. He's done his job, right? And I said, well, good luck with that, And I said, I'm a smart guy. I probably made you 20 grand right here in the last 5 months that I've been working at this thing, right? And I've made connections that you never would have made. You go, oh yes, I know you're really great, blah blah blah. Meaning he had where he made his real money was he had this thing where college kids would come, and because it was a church, they'd stay there for a few days, and he'd had them paint this or move cans or do something, and they could check it off on box of their community service. They had to do community service to get X, Y, or Z. They had social, you know, studying sociology or psychology, and they had to do some kind of, they were supposed to be doing social deeds all 4 years, but they would come for a weekend, and Tim would give them a certificate and a T-shirt, and that would be good enough for their school to check the box, right? They'd walk around with a T-shirt and the thing. But when I was there, when they got arrived, the first thing they did was I would put them through a shamanic the tea ceremony, right? And I put them in a state of mind that, because what I did was, being the action coordinator, I took these kids and I took them into the hood, and I took them into the daycare centers, and I took them to all the things that weren't Goodwill or the United Way, but were run by people like the Hope Center that was run by Darlene from money out of her pocket. I mean, people threw money down to her because they realized that they had to pay her, pay anybody else for what she did for free. So she got enough money to keep that thing going. But I would take those college kids there and have them hang out with the kids, because after 1 o'clock, kids started showing up at that place until about 7. And it was Darlene and her son had to take care of 40 screaming banshees, and I would get these college kids in there. And 90% of these kids loved it. There was about 10% who told me, I don't want to see this. You're making me uncomfortable. By making them see the world around them, I was making them uncomfortable. And they went back, and this was the excuse of why I got let go there, because they and the other thing I would do is, like, the 3 or 4 days that those kids would be there, I would come around like at lunchtime or when I knew they'd be there, and I'd sit at the table and I'd read their palms and I would give insight onto who and what they were. Anyway, so 10% of those kids went back to their colleges and said, it made me uncomfortable. It made me see things I didn't want to see. And now I can't unsee them. And it's really made me uncomfortable. I just wanted to be able to live my life through my screen and consume. And now I have to think every time I buy some useless piece of crap on, the tube, I kind of feel bad about it. Oh. And that complaint got back to him, and that was, and the old ladies who didn't like that I was bringing black people to their church, so anyway, so before this happened, before I got let go, and everything is spinning, and Action Tuesday, and meeting Thursday, and the no fear, because that's what I wanted. I want people to sit next to each other and not have fear about the other, right? All this is going on, and their church grew by 300, but it just happened to be black, Hispanic, and poor white people, not, old white people who, had jobs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that they had retirement and bought stock and, were comfortable, by seeing, turning their church into what Christ would want. They were feeling uncomfortable, just like those snowflakes, right? So between the board, the old people, and the snowflakes, I was let go. But before, man, I had that thing humming like a top, right? It was like where everybody was coming to have a good time and serve and be part of a community, and it was great, right? So, and I didn't stay there a lot. I just got things, I got lots of things to do. I just would spin things up and go. I would come by like lunch, I'd be the maitre d'. I'd come and do this and come and do that. But, I was seriously sick then. So I would have my bed, not only do it, have a hard day getting up in the morning, but, I'd have bad days, bad weeks when I couldn't get out of bed. There were days that I ended up in the hospital, for days, and no one seemed to care, oh, well, can take care of himself. And the fact that I'd wired myself into doctors and hospitals who would take care of me, and enjoyed my presence in their hospital while this one doctor said, my endocrinologist always says, man, you are the healthiest dead guy I know. I said, the whole time you were in the hospital in 2015, 16, you should have been dead. You were dead. All of your vitals, all of your blood chemistry, it should not have supported life. But you're getting better. I don't understand. So every time I see him, so these guys have me come see them. They do procedures on me and just pull up the hood and make sure that I'm doing okay. But just that's how you stay alive when you're as sick as I am. Is you don't forget about it. You don't go back eating. I have a very controlled diet. I exercise. And I see these guys every 40 days. I get a total blood panel every 90 days. And I have my eyes operated on and my whatever little sores I get taken care of immediately. So that's why I'm alive. But all those people in those communities, every one of them, all they said, when I'd come back, where were you? We needed, what you deserted us. And I said, guys, I told you, like from the beginning, when I'm not here is because either I'm doing something else that is more important, or I'm about to die. And I only had one friend one day who came up to visit me, and he owns this business called Black Dog Salvage. And he came up and said, "Oh wow, good, you're still alive." He goes, "I got to give you a job. You got to come down, and I got to get you a place to live." And and because if you stay up here, you're going to be dead by the spring. And he was right. So he actually did save my friggin' life. But his ulterior motive was he knew my skill set. I known him for 10 years. So he had issues in his business, and just my presence there kind of took care of that. But anyway, I'm leading up to the crescendo of this 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 16 seconds. And still John hasn't come in to interrupt. So we're having our Action Tuesday. And the girl is there being unbelievable. She's got the church all organized, and I showed her how to write grants, and she's writing them grants, and Tim is like just happier than spit, right? And so this guy from the Workers' Day World thing came into our office one day and said, "I hear you got this thing called Action Tuesday. I had these women from the Ukraine that I've been taking. That one of my friends has been taking around." The country and talking about the Ukraine and what's going on with Russia and the spirituality of, or lack of, by the replacement by the EU materialism, what's going on. And they would love to give their spiel. And I can't find any place that won't let us do it for free. And I said, sure, come on in, we'll do it. And sure, what day you want? And here, let's put it on the calendar. And Tim's there, and he's not saying anything because there were some other people who would if he said, oh, we can't have these commies here or whatever, well, they were like, black, he was, there would have been people who said, what are you talking about, Tim? And I was always, the good angel on his shoulder. And he was smart enough to realize whatever I wanted to do or how I did it was fine, right? And he just kind of ran, distraction from the old people and the board, and that the church was getting so much street cred, and everyone was talking about how great the church was. They were like, "Oh yes, it's our church, we're doing it," And Tim was going, "Oh yes, it's all me," He was the poster child, and I love poster children because they take, I don't have to deal with people who like complain or anything. If anyone comes to me, I just say, hey, go talk to those people. Anyway, so the guy shows up, right? Now he says they're from, the Ukraine, and I said, where in the Ukraine? And he says, they're from, the place, the party vacation place on the Black Sea. You know, for years, everyone has been taking over the Ukraine. You know, it was like the KM gang, the Tsar, the French, the Germans, then the Nazis, then the communists. You know, so someone has always been going in. And this one city on the Baltic, you know, the name is, but it's always, no matter who was conquering that place, they never touched the city because everybody wanted to go there for a good meal and lie on the beach. Um, anyway, so these girls came from there. And so I made them blintzes and you know, cabbage soup. And I went to the bakery and got some really good dark bread. And I went over to Mrs. Pogue and got some fresh, really great butter and cheese, and um, and I made really good, strong Russian tea, right? And so, and the whole dining room is full of that smell, and it's cold, and it's little, it's gonna snow or sleet or do something. Anyway, so these girls come in, and I go, you know, I greet them with the, you know, Ukrainian welcome, and they go, wow, the smell. I said, here it goes. I said, right here. Here's a cup. You know, gave them a cup of tea. Wow, this tea is right. And I gave them. They had these like little butter cookies, right? And they're kind of hard, and you dunk them in the tea, and then they melt in your mouth. And these little, you eat these like all through the meal. It's like the thing, and it's got this lemony, buttery taste that kind of clears your palate. It's like eating sherbet, right? But you dunk it in tea. You know, you don't want to eat sherbet, cold sherbet in the winter. So these cookies. So I had gotten these cookies. And that's the beauty of Roanoke. There is a slice of every cultural pie in this town, and if you dig deep enough, you'll find somebody making, you know, blintzes and pierogies and things like that, which I went and got from those people. Was, you know, they, the ones I would make would be like bricks, but these were like perfect. Anyway, but I can make a really kickin' cabbage soup. So um, I give them the tea and cookies, and then I bring out the soup with a bowl of sour cream, and then I bring out the blintzes and the pierogies, and I just keep it coming. And they got there 2 hours before the show was supposed to start. And they had this meal, and they goes, you know, we've been with this asshole who's just trying to get in our pants, and we stay at the crappiest motels, and we eat at McDonald's all the time. You know, I've gained 20 pounds. You know, I came here because I'm on a mission. And I said, okay, you had your tea, you had your cookies, you had dinner. Now tell me the mission. And they said, well, what our speech is going to be about is what happened to our country is happening to yours. And I said, what do you mean? What happened? She goes, well, you know, we were conquered by all these people, and then Russia broke up, and we got our freedom, and we traded our nukes for, you know, freedom and access to the EU and money from the World Bank, and it was a miracle. We all became rich. Like, oh well, when you own nothing, when you're eating dirt, it's pretty easy to become rich. So these two girls had been schooled as rocket scientists. I mean, they had really analytical, critical-minded kind of heads, right, and very observant, right. And one was a designer, so she was like, and she always wanted to be, you know, an artist. You know, she was making art, and you know, in the Russian school, oh, you can draw a straight line, you'll be a designer of rockets, right? And the other girl was kind of, you know, always extraordinarily empathetic. Her mom was a channeler. So she, you know, well, you'll be in, in propaganda and intelligence because you're so intelligent, right? So we'll put you at the rocket plant, right? So keep an eye on everyone, see if anyone's stealing secrets. Anyway, um, so these girls say, so then the big time happened, and the artist girl went to New York and became relatively famous and very successful as an artist in New York. But this girl was her best of friends. You know, they had known each other since grade school, and she started a advertising agency. And it was like she was just so observant. She was like that, right? So she was in the media. She was using her her spidey sense, her psychology teaching, and her rocket science intuition to become very rich. And she has a big building downtown. That at the top, she has a beautiful apartment on the roof, and she has her business in the other 4 floors, and she's employing 60 people. Oh, I wish I could remember that city, but it's the nicest the Asian place that nobody blew up during all those occupations. Even the Nazis would go there and be nice, well behaved. Anyway, and she also outside of town on the Black Sea, she had a little docha, a nice, beautiful house right on the sea, and she kept in shape by walking that 8 miles instead of driving her Audi and getting into traffic. She would walk to work every day or ride a bike, and one day she's out in the burbs, on the beach, not like in the urban area, but she walks out and she comes out from her nice little gated front yard, and there's a dead body in the street, not in front of her gate, but just right there. And she kind of looks at it and says, "Well, I got to get to work." She kind of said, "Well, he's dead. I can't do anything. I'll call it in when I get to work." So she walks in. She gets into work. The city is on fire. It is like a blaze, and there are people, being Molotov cocktailed, and she's like running to save her life, and she's gathering people up, and she's putting them in her building. And she's got about 70 people in there, and it's got all this old, beautiful European building with nice glass front, and for some reason the rioters don't attack their building, but 2 buildings next to them are 2 buildings that are on fire, and one of them was a school. So she and 2 guys go in there and get the children that were like, who would have been burned alive, and brought them back to their building. Anyway, so it's like a shock because she's been just so stuck in her little success role of having the good life, and she would drive her Audi to Italy and to Brussels and expand her business and da 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 da, and fly up to New York and be with her girlfriend. And so she takes her little scientist hat and puts it on once this thing kind of tamps down. And and she starts watching TV, which she never, even though she's, in advertising, she didn't really watch TV.
Buenos dias.
Hey, I'm naked! I told you he'd come in just when I'm coming to the raison d'etre. Hey, come on in! Look at my pubes! Come on! PE! Anyway, so she's telling me this story, and she goes, so I go back and look at, use my critical mind, and I look at what happened once Yugoslavia broke away from Russia, and we gave away our nukes, and we started to, be successful. And she said, back in the days of the Russians, we had 1 TV channel, and then there was 2 and 3 and 4, and then we got cable. And then there were hundreds, and we had satellite dishes. And she said about 3 years before this happened, before Russia invaded Crimea, RT came on. And then a thing like MSNBC came on. And then a thing like CNN came on. And then a thing like Fox came on. And they were all part of those corporations. They had, Ukrainian names, but they were part of those corporations. And she saw, because she's in basically was schooled to be a propagandist, mind control. She was part of mind control, and that's what she was using to become really successful in advertising. And she saw that how, back in the day, Yugoslavia always were like the people who wore Lodenhausen back, old times. People who were commies, people who were Nazis, because, when the Nazis came into Yugoslavia, about a quarter of the population was throwing flowers at them because they wanted that kind of politics until they started killing everyone. Until the SS, it's fine when the German army came in, they were nice guys, almost like them. But when the, Nazi SS showed up and started killing everyone, not so much. So, and then there was this, once this TV thing showed up, there was, she called it the hidden hand. And that's where I picked that up from. She goes, there was this entity that didn't proclaim itself, didn't put itself on the on the in front of everyone, but it was in control of everything and manifested everyone to start breaking down into camps. And and that's when I first heard the term tribalism. And she said, I'm looking at your presidential campaign, and this is when, there were 20 people in the Republican Party, and everyone thought that Donald Trump was a joke. And she said, that guy, Donald Trump, is going to be your president. You know, and I can just see him because I used to, train people to mind control folk. And in my classes, when we were staunch commies, there would be people from all around the world learning this, right? Not just, in the commie circle, but people from your CIA, FBI, you know, all the advertising agencies in New York came and learned this. And that's where she got the idea of starting an advertising agency. And she goes, this is what's happened to your country. You are going to have, she said, you are going to have a civil war by 2021. And you better do so. And that's why we're going around talking about it. But when we go and you're the first American we have ever seen here who understands what we're talking about. And then they started to cry. I said, guys, you're just exhausted. You've been doing this. How long have you been? 3 months. I said, well, maybe. Come on. And I took them up to where the daycare center was, where they had little beds. And I said, here, put them to bed, put a little blankie over. And I said, get an hour or so nap, and I'll wake you up before the crowd shows up. And they hugged me and kissed me. You're the best. You're the first human being we met in America. And they've been here for like 5 months. The girl in the art world has been here like 8 years. Anyway, so they go to sleep. And I then sit and talk to the commie guy. And he's down there talking to Tim. And they're like, blah, 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 trying to impress each other. And I just kind of sit there. I said, let me see your workers stay well. And he goes on a car and brings like, a ton of these things. Here, pass them out to your parishioners, And Tim kind of looks at me and I go, okay. So I said, we'll take 3. So, and this guy was such a yahoo, right? He's what I call Politico. And it was like unbelievable. So then the girls come, and I knew all the usual suspects. I said, these people are coming, blah 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 blah. So we had all the Politico people from the left, the $15 guy, and the Black Lives. The person running the Black Lives Matter thing was white. The person who ran the NACP was white. That whole kind of usual suspects. There were about 200 of folk, the plowshare kids, and and do they do anything? Zip. Now, about 10 people within the 200, they did everything. Like Sweet Polly, she started and ran Earth Day for 20 years. She got old doing that. And anyway, so they're all there, the usual suspects, and the 10 people who should have been there couldn't because they were like helping some old grandmother or somebody who lost their house, they were out doing the good work. And so these girls start their story. Now they spoke perfect English to me, but once these people were so, I don't even know the word, rude, that's the word, because they just started interrupting. They didn't even let them finish. They didn't even get to the question. They just said, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, really? So you used to live in Ukraine? You really? Anyway, it was unfriggin' believable. And that's pretty much when I said, that's it for me. I'm done with this, And so I said, and I know when I'm about to go. So I basically, and I was still working at the Black Dog, so I had a little salary, and I still had my little, apartment, and my roommate there, She and I found out after living with her. Yeah, I thought she was a gorgeous woman. She was, but she was a transsexual. She was still, as John Boy would call her, a girly man. Anyway, so I knew that I was going to have to make it. Things were going to change. Not I was going to. Things were going to change, right? So, bottom line was, spring had come. It had no longer it was winter, so my life wasn't at jeopardy like it is right now. And so basically, things were going great for Tim, and he didn't need me anymore. And I was now more because I just kept spinning the things up, and he was getting complaints from the. There's so many of those people in our church. It's our church, not their church. No, it's God's church. It's Christ's church. His first Christian church is Christ's church. Anyway, so. And I was, and they would be so sweet and nice to me, but like with vinegar, like with poison in it. They come and, they come to the fun events. I put, oh, this is so great out. But, anyway. So, and he was getting complaints from the snowflakes in the schools, and that was like maybe jeopardizing his little cash flow. He's making 30 grand off the side from that little endeavor. And did you ever see the movie Catch-22? He was like Milo Mindbender, right? So I moved on, and I was getting involved in I was so involved with the black and poor communities. I was getting more involved with them, and I was trying to spin up their entities. The FCC was just a facility I could use. It wasn't really going to be a movement or anything of that nature. And that is basically where we are now, kids. All the above. Everything that I told you about. Meaning all Asheville, Lower East Side, Rainbow Gathering. These are all amazing things that I try to spin up to like energize communities to connect to all our relations. And once people got, spinning, they were like, oh, you mean I have to interact with people? You mean, it's like you heard the PE teacher, I've been doing the last 3 weeks things for other people. Oh, it's so terrible. No, it's what life is about. It's what gives us joy, It's what makes us happy, making others happy. Okay, 1 hour, 57 minutes, and 31 seconds. Let's see. Let's look at some of these. You guys have been chatting up the storm here. Okay. Oh. Where is that located? In Russia, there's a woman who has a community or commune where Chernobyl happened. They went in there and parts of Russia where no one wants to live, and all the homeless people have gone there, and they're housed and healing and feeding 1 million people. There's a series of books that her husband wrote called The Singing Cedars. Amazing presentation on it. Okay, have to look that up. Just like indigenous. Okay, good. They all work together. Yep, just as it should be. Think about the same. Yep. Wasn't sure for male or female. Well, what I've learned from my family is I have no idea what gender you guys are. You're all my family, and I love you, and you're all super cool, as our friend says here. Is there true love? Of course, there's true love. True love is unconditional forgiveness and service to all our relations. That's true love. And out of that comes whatever you need, meaning every great love, of female love, that kind of love, intimate love, that has occurred to me, and I've had a lot of it. And it has come when I didn't expect it. I wasn't looking for it. When I just said, it'll come. And, it did. I met my first wife on the subway I met my second wife at a gigantic event, Living Life Expo that I helped put together, and I was up in the roof, just keeping an eye on things. I wasn't down on the floor, and this my second wife spied me. I was way up there in the dark, and I'm looking with binoculars at who my minions should go talk to, and and as I peruse the area with my binoculars, this beautiful woman in the most unbelievably outfit does this to me. So I got on my little, hey guys, I'm going off air, you know, do whatever you want. And I ran all the way down there and we talked for 16 hours until the janitors threw us out. And then we walked to New York for another 4 hours, and I took her home and said, can I come up for coffee? Which is, what that means. And she goes, no. And she gave me her business. Says, call me later today. And I've told you that story. That's how I met my second wife. And all the other women in my life, and I had some, I've had at least 25 relationships with women who I should have married. Right? I'd have a different life totally, but they were all like my other two wives. But I've been married twice, and after my second wife died, this little part, and when women we'd really get amazingly attached to each other. These women were amazingly psychic and brilliant and great, and they could, sense there's that little chunk of me missing that they couldn't be part of, and they understood. And they were like ready to, because I was so everything else they wanted, I was okay, and they thought, well, I can help. I'll be the one to heal that, right? Well, and after a year or two or three, and that didn't quite get healed, and that our relationship would just get better and better, I should have married that person, and the next were about 5 women of that character, and there were another, 50 women that I was involved with over the years who were great, and I have fond memories, and every one of those relationships were really great. And when the fork in the road came, we I'm still friends with like more than half of them. Now there's about 3% of those women who, because I didn't marry them, I didn't do what they expected or wanted, they kind of got about it. But such is life. If my batting average is just, and I don't even think of those as failures, they were just what they were. Nice. Love. Is that love spiral? I don't know what that means. It's almost like Scooby-Doo. I don't suck souls. Good. It's never good to suck souls. It's not very appetizing. And it's very addictive. Fear is never a good motivator. You usually end up at the end of a rope or a pitchfork stuck in you, or someone's, touching you with a burning torch, setting you on fire. Let's see. South, KKK. I love that, who's the black comedian where he did that skit where he was the head Ku Klux Klan, but he was blind, so he didn't even know he was black. That was like one of the greatest skits. Dave Chappelle, I think, yes. And that city almost came through my mind. I just realized how not to be distracted or, taken away by the PE teacher. I'll always do these live chats morning and evening, basically naked. I don't want to put that thought in your mind, but I think that's the only keep John away. This is trippy to watch out. Yes, I'm glad you're tripping. That's what shamanic ceremony is. Psychotherapy, psycho-hallucinogenic experience without drugs.
keep telling you guys, meditation, giving thanks. Yes, we're all but remember, take this thanks to every day in every way. Take the peace of the earth and make it stronger with love's co-creation. Uh, you got it. When there's fear, there's no love. Vice versa. Well, love is always necessary because it's the only thing that exists. Everything else is an illusion. People think love is sex. It's not. Love is this unconditional forgiveness and service of making others happy. That's what makes you happy. That's what gives you the sense of love. And by doing that, every act you do is joyful. That's why Jesus was always laughing. Even when he was up on the cross, he was like giggling. Lust is not necessary. Love is always necessary. Thank you. Yeah. You have to be hardcore love. That's right. That's me. I'm I live to be an example. I don't try to tell you to do anything. I live to be your example. I'm the pebble in the pond. It's necessary. It's true. Why do you guys watch this thing? Because I'm all of that. Just what Jamie said there. Love is essential. Yep, the rest is transitory. It's not even real. It's an illusion. Well, cash is a tool, and, it's a tool. I've had lots of money, I've been a rich man, a poor man, all of that, right? And it's all good. It's what you let the universe, basically, I let the universe put me in the positions I need to be. Dragon. Great. Yep. Yes. Well, are we close to the end? No, you guys are chatting away. Man, God, it goes, you guys are just chatting away. Lord have mercy. Well, I was talking away. You were chatting away. Planting seeds. Yep, that's what I'm doing. Planting seeds. Okay, here's the last one is love hump. Love is creation. It's a celebration of bitches. Dave Chappelle, more powerful than Zoroastrian. Yep. Let's see. This is the ultimate medicine. You got it. Look into planting seeds. So, gang, you can get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Go look at my my blogspot, my XRATTED blogspot, and it's one novel. It's 3/4 of one novel. I got 26 more, and that's how I write. And it's all these little slices, just like my YouTube's here, just like these chats. There are these, griot tales that are all over the place that come back to a centralized motif, right? Okay. So it's 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 19 seconds. So I'm going to wait till 2 hours, 9 minutes, and 2 seconds. So I'm going to say goodnight, Gracie, and I love you all, and I'll see you tonight. Hopefully, I'm going to the PE teacher's house for Thanksgiving. That should be interesting. I'll give a report on that one. Okay, I love you guys. You're the best. 41 seconds. You have a great day, and remember, Thanksgiving every day. Every day, Thanksgiving. Yeah. Yep, peanuts for pickles. Love you guys. 8, 55, 56, 57. Just visualize those crop circles. Remember that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I love you guys.